All right, folks. All right, folks. All right, folks. All right, folks. It's all now. I'm just trying to see if you can hear it. It's all going in the background. It's all now. I'm just trying to see if you can hear it. It's all going in the background. It's all now. I'm just trying to see if you can hear it. It's all going in the background. Share. What we're trying to do. We're trying to get in here when everybody gets on. Share. We're trying to do. Trying to get in here when everybody gets on. Share. Trying to do. Trying to get in here when everybody gets on. Share. So I don't like that. Like that. Like that. Wow. Why does it keep doing that? It keeps repeating everything I say. Like there's 50,000 voices listening to me at one time. Why does it keep doing that? It keeps repeating everything I say. Like there's 50,000 voices listening to me at one time. Why does it keep doing that? It keeps repeating everything I say. Like there's 50,000 voices listening to me at one time. Why does it keep doing that? It keeps repeating everything I say. Okay, guys, this is the first time that I've logged on to do a live of any kind, so y'all gonna have to forgive me. I'm not really prepared like I should be, but what I'm here to do today is basically discuss what I do. Um, I kind of talked about this on my Facebook post a few minutes ago because I went live on Facebook. But what I want to talk to y'all about is trying to do better about getting this thing off the ground as far as doing lives that I plan on doing more in the future. This kind of gives me an opportunity to relaunch and just discuss things. As you see, I got my little thing back here in the back. Um, the future of this podcast is to, of course, be live as much as possible. I might try to do it between 9 and 10 p.m. every day, or at least once or twice a week. Right now, it'll be once or twice a week until I can get this fully set up. What I'm trying to do, of course, is get people to get people informed and also try to set up a level of politics that we're not getting right now. So you basically I try to be, yeah, sometimes I seem insulting towards a person. I'm never insulting in the way that I've seen as far as both sides go. I like honesty and integrity, and I will tell the truth about things that I see and I say that aren't right. And that's how I feel everything should be. You should be honest and have integrity. So today I really have limited information. I'm just going based on how I feel about certain things. I'm gonna start local. I am an Alabama person. So on August 26th, it's important that everybody get to the polls, know where your location is. Most of you should be registered to vote, but if you're in Alabama, it's important that you know where your location is, that you know who you're voting for, because this is local elections, mayoral elections, your city council, things like that. I don't know if county commissioner's up, but if county commissioner's up, make sure that you vote for that. And there may be even some um, local seats available. So I'm going to start here in Birmingham area. We have a number of issues now. If you live in Birmingham, you live in the Bessemer Cutoff. The biggest issue that faces us is crime and poverty and um, blighted properties. Those things are huge. Trying to get business in the area. Education is also important. Cities like Birmingham are doing better. Fairfield, I feel like, is on the uptake in that. Midfield is trying to do better. All these schools are trying to improve their schools, improve the reading standards and all that stuff. But there's only so much you can do, and I will talk about that a little bit later. But we want to put the right people in leadership to continue the growth of our cities. We do understand something else. It takes a village to raise a child, and that's part of the issue in Birmingham. There are a lot of children that are out of control. I spoke with somebody the other day. I'm not going to say his name, but we'll say this: he is a youth football coach, and he also is a public servant in Jefferson County. And one of the things that he came out, he said, and I thought was an honest assessment, is that some of these kids need to belong to a group home. They don't need to be raised by their parents. And that's sad to say this. It's sad for me to even repeat this because it's the truth, though. It's something that needs to be said about part of our society and what's going on today. Part of this is about people who are out of control. Some of this is about kids who don't go to school because we're watching what happened in Washington, D.C. right now. They're putting the troops on the streets and they're trying to stop crime. We understand that. We hear the numbers that crime is down in D.C., but there's still a problem. There are particular neighborhoods where crime is always chronically a problem in D.C., and we can't bypass that problem. But the problem is part of that is that we've been leaving people behind, that we've not been trying to get people in the right place. Money, our own problems get in the way. Some of the issues in the city is a lot of the best and the brightest here, like locally in Birmingham, have left for the suburbs. They've gone to Hoover, they've gone to Vestavia, they moved out to Pelham, they've moved out to Alabaster. They've left the city. Now, some of the other ones have stayed here, but sometimes you want to get away from your situation and your circumstances in the city you live. Maybe it is hurting your growth. So then you go elsewhere. You got guys that join the military and they go to Atlanta, they go to Houston, they go to places like that. But what can we do to make our city better? We have to use the resources we have available. You can't just always decide, I'm going to go where the grass is green. You have to make a decision to stay and say, I'm going to fight this, I'm going to build something. And we all have to do that in our city, whether what sizes. I know I said something the other day in a post I put on Facebook where I was talking about me and my wife. We go outside and we walk up and down our block and we clean the trash. We take out the trash. Literally, that's something that's important to do. You have to do the things that are important to try to clean up your neighborhoods. Like I said, we can't do anything about the dilapidated or blighted housing, the empty spaces. But here's another thing: if you're a person that's thinking about business or you're thinking about getting into real estate, cities have land banks. You know what those land banks are? Those are properties they've either taken over, they're either blighted or they're torn down. And so that means there's empty lots there. If you have a plan and the funds to do something, you plan to do something with it, that would be a great thing. Because we keep talking about how there's not enough housing. We have the opportunity in the city of Birmingham to grow and develop housing for everybody. Even though there are programs here, individuals can take it upon themselves to build their own houses or say take a large plot of land and build tiny homes on those plot of lands for other people that can live there at affordable prices. These are opportunities, but these are the things that are important when we're talking about the election, when we're talking about politics. What can we do locally to fix the issues here in the United States? You know, food stamps and welfare and Medicaid, all of that is stuff that we talk about. And people can say, well, If you woke, no, 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 no. So Medicaid is important to help people who can't afford health care or who can't get health care, because there are a lot of people nowadays who are contract or gig workers. You know what that means? They have to go look for their own insurance because the company ain't paying for it. If the company is, they're taking a huge chunk out of the money they're giving you, and it's not a salary they're giving. They're paying you like your profit, like this is part of your profit. So if you want us to insure you, we got to take this out of your profit, and this is not company matching. You know what I'm saying? They don't do company matches in those situations. But believe me, honestly, I know this stuff. Um, all I can say is this: one of the other issues, a lot of the issues in Birmingham, and this is important to bring this up because I'm still bringing up local elections, is we recently had the waterworks board taken from us by the state. Birmingham has a mayor that you consider to be a liberal or a Democratic mayor. His opposition is right there in Montgomery. He has to do everything to work hard to try to get things for Birmingham because there's a lot of opposition to anything that Democratic mayors do in their cities. That includes Birmingham, that includes Montgomery. There's a ton of opposition to that. Now, sometimes the state will work with you if they can see the money on the wall. But this is an agricultural state, and the industrial city like Birmingham, even Huntsville, Mobile, Montgomery, all these cities have to fight for their resources with the government. And then what we don't want Montgomery to do is, because they're continuing talking about taking control. The first thing they ever took away from our school was the schools. Like at any point that the government can decide your local school is struggling, and therefore we're going to take that school over, and it's for financial reasons. They said that we're going to rearrange your finances and do that, and that's happened to Birmingham. It recently happened to Bessemer City Schools. The state took that over. Then when Woodfin, during his first term, tried to get the minimum wage increased to $10 an hour in Birmingham, which would have been a major boost in the city here, where at the time rent levels were like $900. I think the average rent in Birmingham is $1,100 to $1,200. So if you're making $7 an hour, you definitely are not living in a $1,200 space. There may be some $800 apartments you're living in. You may be living in projects in the slums, something like that. But if I could boost your salary at least up to $10, you're making a little bit more money. The state said no. That local municipalities did not have the right to raise the minimum wage. That is totally solely the responsibility of the state. Then they took away the waterworks board. Like I was saying, taking away the power of the waterworks board. They rearranged how the city council and the mayors work in every city. It's just tons of things they've done. And now there's a threat to uh, the airport authority. There's also a threat of taking away the ability of mayors in the cities to choose their police chiefs. All of these are threats that are coming from our government. And this is the kind of stuff that people have to know is going on in Alabama. This is the kind of stuff that happens in a red state. It doesn't just happen here, it happens in Mississippi. You hear about the problems Jacksonville had a year before last year, where the state tried to basically create a segregated police force in Jackson. And I think they even got away with it in Jackson, away from the black parts of town. So the white parts of town now are in their own police jurisdiction or judicial jurisdiction or something like that in Mississippi. So the same things that they're doing that they do here, and they don't realize how that hurt. These are the two states, Mississippi and Alabama, I can talk about, including Louisiana and Arkansas, that have the most lax gun laws. They are the most red states. They have the most insufficient education laws, where they've changed the state of education here by this choice program, where you can take your public funds and basically get a voucher to go to private school. They've changed that here in the state of Alabama. That's changing the situation for some schools. Now, there's a lot of kids who still, even with these vouchers, can't afford to go to private school. So you wonder what's going to happen to them as the funds are depleted from the system. But then you hear from cities like Birmingham say, we got plenty of money. We just got to do the right things to get these kids in the right place. And like I said, again, parenting comes into that. How are we taking care of our children? What are we going to do for our children? People say, well, what about after school programs? We need those. We do need more of those. We also need work for kids and stuff like that. We need stuff available keep people's minds occupied. We also need to get better salaries for parents. So that's why bringing in more jobs is important. So who you elect, city council, who you elect the mayor, all of that is important as far as trying to bring the revenue to the city, trying to get the city cleaned up, organizing events, and who people are able to come to when they have ideas and events that they want to happen here. I'm gonna tell you about a local fight that's not important to politics, but it's important here in Birmingham. So we have this UFL, this summer spring league football team, minor league to the NFL, and some people would say this is not important to them, but it's important to fight that's going on. So the fight here is to keep this team in Birmingham. And I'm gonna go through all the issues we've had. One is the size of the stadium. It's a 40,000 seat stadium. This is a fairly new league. The average attendance has been about 10,000. And then here's the other thing. This is on Fox News. This is on ESPN. This is being televised nationwide. One side of the stadium is closed during the game, so then you don't see the fans. So the UFL is still struggling. It's a new league. It's trying to struggle to stay afloat, and it's asking the city of Birmingham right now to sell 5,000 plus tickets to a league that they barely promote on TV or anything in the city. You see a poster here and there. You might see a post on Facebook. Maybe somebody put something on Twitter or TikTok or one of those sites, right? Sorry, it's kind of hot in here, so I'm sweating a little bit. So they'll put that on the site. So now comes this issue I was telling you about protective stadiums, so 40,000 seat stadium. They're pitting us against a suburban city, Hoover, because they have this big old stadium that sits there that basically they use for SEC baseball and not games all the time, for the SEC tournament. It originally was for our minor league baseball team, the Barons, which have moved to Birmingham. See how we're competing with suburbs in other cities in the area. Instead of these cities working together, they're all competing for revenue. So here we are competing for revenue to keep this in, not only keep the team in Birmingham, period, the Stallions, but we're also fighting to keep the team in Birmingham, not out in the suburbs where. So the reason the Barons moved back to Birmingham was they were more centrally located. So people from the different suburbs, from the northern suburbs and the southern suburbs and the eastern and western suburbs, would be able to come to Birmingham. And so not only that, our soccer team is located here. They also play a protected stadium. Of course, UAB, the college here, the major college in town, because there's also Miles College in Fairfield and Sanford and Homewood, plays at Protective Stadium. We also have a big, older stadium, and I mean old, it was built in the 20s, stadium with 60,000 seat leading field that sits out there. And right now it sits empty except for when either Miles College or the SWAC or SEAC or one of these other organizations decide to have something out there. And sometimes have concerts out there and Battle of the Bands and other events and high school games at that stadium. So they're using that stadium now for that. But like I said, we have all these venues in Birmingham. Birmingham has access to, it's a big city. It has right there by the Protective Stadium, you got Texas Day Brazil, you got Todd's English Pub, you got mug shots, there's a Casa de Blanca, a Mexican grill, there's a pizza place, there's all kinds of stuff right there. You also got Top Golf. In the area around, there are plenty of restaurants, there are bars and all that stuff to do there. Hoover has that too, but it's a little bit more spread out. There's hotels right down the street. There are restaurants, and not the nightlife ends at 9 o'clock in Hoover. I mean, if you go to Hoover after 9 o'clock, it's done. So we talking about a game that ends at 7, or say your game starts at 7, ends at 10. Maybe you want to go somewhere with your friends after the game to a bar. You're going to have to come all the way back to Birmingham to do that. That's me advertising. But this is political because now you're pitting Birmingham up against Hoover, and who you have as mayor of the city matters, because when they get to negotiating or talking to these guys about keeping the team in, first of all, we got to get 5,000 season tickets. That's going to be hard, but I think it can happen. When you talk about negotiating and keeping these teams here and bringing revenue to the city, you have to be able to talk to people. We have to be able to bring people together. We already made an agreement between the cities that we were not going to stab each other in the back and try to take business from other people. Like, let's say this whole Stallions thing, Hoover's sitting over there. This is the team on the person who owns the league talking about moving to Hoover, but people in Birmingham are saying no, leave it at Protective Stadium, and I hope they leave it at Protective Stadium. Okay, I'm going way off the subject, but you get it. I'm talking about something that's local that affects us nationally. We have to think about how or affects us economically in the city of Birmingham one way or the other. So we got to try to keep those things here in the city. We got to try to bring more economics, and I mean factory jobs, things that really produce. It's hard to do these days because factories haven't really grown in the United States since the 60s and 70s, right? So we got to increase, warehouse jobs. We got a ton of those. Those bring in revenue too. So you bring in industry, technology, medical, because medical is the biggest thing in Birmingham. UAB is probably the largest employer in the state, and that's where most of our revenue comes from. Banking, Regions Bank is one of the largest regional banks. It's right here in Birmingham. It's important. There are other banks. There's Iberia, Synovus, Centennial Bank. There's several groups that are here. This is banking, medical group, and we want to bring in technology. I know Huntsville in North Alabama is becoming the tech city, but Birmingham could be the tech city. Could be the big. We could expand the airport. Something else. That's what I was going to talk about. So part of the issue with the whole thing with the airport was originally way back when two other mayors were here. Bell, the mayor before Bell, the mayor before that, which was Arrington. Birmingham was supposed to be working on expanding the airport. So what's happened in that area is they bought up all those properties. Now they're all abandoned, overgrown. The streets are in terrible condition, and they've had to block them off because criminal elements in that what we call East Lake neighborhood have been messing around over there, and they haven't expanded the airport. So we're talking about 20 years of stuff that hasn't been done. It's time that we invest in those things, expand the airport, give us to be able to be a bigger hub instead of just a regular regional hub. We have a chance to be an international airport if we can grow the size of our airport, which brings in traffic. If we can increase the number of hotels, that gives more jobs for people in the city. If we can increase the number of restaurants around the area, that increases and brings more jobs to the city. That's revenue. So whoever we bring in, it's important that we bring these people into the city. And that's me talking about local stuff. And so there's a lot going on. August 26th is very important. Let me just say that. And so before I get out of here, let me go on to the national scene for a little while. I already said something about DC. And we have to look at that because even cities like Birmingham face the chance or the threat of Donald Trump saying, hey, we want to put the military on the street. Now, home rule keeps him from doing that. The Home Rule Act, it keeps him from doing that so far, but we got a Congress that's willing to back anything that Donald Trump do. So we'll see how that goes. Okay. So crime is a problem nationwide, especially in cities. But the proliferation of guns, most of these weapons, whether they're stolen or whether they're purchased, come from the South. They come from somewhere down here. They came from places where gun laws are lax. I live in an open carry state. Texas is an open carry state. Mississippi, I believe, is an open carry state. Tennessee, open carry. I believe Georgia is an open carry. I live in all these places around me that are open carry. You got Atlanta that has crime problems. You got Birmingham, Montgomery, Mobile, Pritchard, Alabama, small town, 60,000 people. Tuscaloosa, Alabama, crime problems. New Orleans got tons of crime problems. You got Jackson, Mississippi. All of these people are on the list of the high crime areas. And so, it's because of the Democratic mayors. There's a lot more to it than that. And it's difficult also when you can't get police to work in your city. I live in Birmingham. They're trying to recruit. They're doing a better job increasing the number of police on the street. They're trying to put bodies on the street. But you got to understand, the guy that comes directly out of the academy can also be dangerous if he's not, getting proper training. So they got to train all these guys, get them on the street, get them doing with their job. And a lot of people say, "Oh, we don't need more policing." Well, it's like I said, part of it is fixing the community. A part of that is we need better policing. Um, I know about the George Floyd case. I just told you about Jabari Nichols. If you ever watch my podcast, go back. You can see one of my podcasts. Or listen to it. I'm on Spotify, I'm on Amazon. Of course, I'm right here on YouTube. I am all over the internet. You can find the stuff that you need to find. You know what I'm saying? So um, the reason why I'm bringing this up, and I think it's important to bring that up, part of the reason we have the police have to do what they do, like I said, is because there's a psychological and sociological issue in our city. But of course, everybody says, well, we don't need to police the poor. It's not policing the poor. It's trying to protect those who live in those communities and neighborhoods from people who have gone astray, basically. And you got to do what you got to do. You got to have police protect people, and it's necessary. How we do it, how it functions, is all up to us. We can do community policing where we have people who literally walk the street, walk the beat, talk to people in the park, talk to the kids in the park, let everybody know who they are, learn the neighborhoods, learn what's good and bad in the neighborhoods where potential hot spots are, all that stuff. We need that kind of policing. That is the kind of policing we need in this country, not the kind that's just a force. We come in, we beat everybody up, we stop and frisk anybody walking down the street. We got all these checkpoints set up where we're doing damage without telling anybody why we're doing it. People are literally harassed for stupid stuff like standing on their side, standing on the sidewalk, sitting on the front porch. I live in a city here where you can get fined for having, say, you remodeling your house. You can have a trailer outside. Here come the police giving you tickets, and then give them any excuse to do anything without properly policing them. Right? I remember reading a story about a young lady, an elderly lady in Valley, Alabama, who was locked up by the police for not paying her $87 garbage bill. She was put in jail. Or a recent story I read about a person somewhere else outside of Alabama who had an HOA, and the HOA fined her for having a dent in the side of her house and a crack on or some chip paint on her house, and that turned to her ended up in jail. That kind of stuff is just ridiculous. I don't know where to go with that. Like I said, this is my first live, so y'all forgive me if I'm all over the place. Um, but let's talk about national news a little bit more because Trump just recently had that whole meeting with Putin. Then he turned around and had a meeting with Zelensky, who was backed up by the Europeans because they were just scared of what Zelensky would be like if he was in that room by himself with Trump. So here you are with all these world leaders, guys from Germany, from Finland, I believe France. They all came over there and they spoke. So basically, the way it went was supposedly Trump said that Putin is okay with us giving a Article 5 type guarantee, but at the same time, what they're asking Putin to do is basically say, change your laws to keep you from being able to invade Ukraine and stuff like that. We know if Putin put it on paper, it don't mean nothing because Putin is the absolute power in Russia. So if he decides, you know what, forget this treaty, Ukrainians to me are a threat, I'm going to go ahead and invade their country. Of course, part of the problem is Trump is okay with them giving up land, giving up Ukraine's giving up land. Ukraine don't want to give up land. They want their children back because there's been thousands, from what I understand, of children that have been basically taken from their homes and taken deep into Russia for re-education or adopted by families to be re-educated as Russian. They can't speak English. And this war now been going for what, almost 2 to 3 years. So those kids probably by now don't know how to speak Ukrainian anymore, depending on how old they are. Probably don't even know who their parents are, but it's disheartening. The whole situation was disheartening, and it's not the only war in the world. Supposedly the president sat down and they talked about the war in Congo to stop the conflict in Congo. So the Congo and Rwanda and the president of Liberia were here. You know what happened with that incident. I won't even talk about that. So worldwide, there are things going on that the president is struggling with. And his name is Trump. He's not very good at his job. That's all I'm gonna say. We got this big, beautiful bill. It might turn out to be a big, beautiful mess. We've got all this tax cuts for the wealthy. He's using tariffs to pay for it, which means that we will pay for it. No matter what anybody tells you, we will pay for those tariffs. And that's another tax on us. And it's like that's supposed to balance out the books. And he's hoping that he can keep these tariffs in place so that his big, beautiful bill won't look so bad, right? There's even talk of a stimulus check of $1,300 coming. And I told my wife the other day, people are telling people send this check back, don't take the check, don't do this. We know it's gonna hurt the economy, but it's coming. So people are gonna take that check. Heck, it pays bills. Do what you need to do with it. That's all I can say about that. Like I said, I'm on here first time. I have no organized thing to talk about. I even just posted something about this, and I think I'm gonna actually do a podcast on it after this guy wrote a book about drug cartels in the military. Yeah. Uh Special forces people, the deltas of the military. Now I've heard stories about this before because we heard about the cocaine coming over from in Vietnam. If you saw what was it, American Gangster? If you saw American Gangster, you know what I'm talking about. They literally were bringing cocaine over in the bottom of the caskets from Vietnam, and I'm sure the same thing was happening during the Korean War. I wouldn't doubt that didn't happen during World War II. And that happened during the Gulf War because of Afghanistan and all the poppy seed fields. When I saw that, I said, "Oh, oh." And so we saw an increase in crime in recent years, especially drug crimes during the Afghan war. Now that the Afghan war is over, even though the Taliban now is controlling, that's how they make their money, by the way, is selling drugs. We find out that this drug cartel at Fort Hood, Hood's, it was a Confederate general, by the way. We won't even talk about that right now because we got Fort Hood, you got Fort Bragg. I think it's Fort Bragg. I'm sorry, Fort Bragg, Fort Hood, and Fort Bragg. Both of them are Confederate names, whatever. Um, Either way, there was a drug cartel here. People died, people were beheaded, drugs were smuggled from Afghanistan to the United States, sold on base. There was a lot of parties full of drugs, alcohol, all that stuff. Alcohol and all that stuff. When you talk about military guys having a good time, you've seen the movies. Um, but this is a little bit above that because now they're sniffing and snorting and shooting up and doing all those things. That's a different level of thing. And there's a lot of it because of the psychological damage that's done to military guys. Special forces guys get deployed overseas multiple times. And the guy in the book was saying 12 to 18, 20 times guys would get deployed overseas. Then they're going in. Their job is going in to shoot up the place. Maybe they're going to catch somebody, capture somebody, but then they kill a lot of people in the process of doing that. So that does something to this up here. Your mind's never going to be right. Now, mine's never going to be right. There's no way your mind ever can be right dealing with that kind of stuff. So that's why I got on here for a little while. I wanted to talk for a little while. Like I said, my show is called Thought You Were Woke, No Speed Limit Podcast. Um, can't spend too much more time on this. I have other things I have to do today, but I just wanted to get on here for a little while, and I hope that you guys come back and we'll watch the show. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you for listening. Peace.